Hi there, can anyone hear me?
Evening, counselor. Oh, she left.
Hi there, can you hear me okay?
Oh, you are here.
Yes, sorry, I realized I didn't put on my background and I haven't.
Hey, good. How are you?
Great. We hear you loud and clear.
We're here.
Thank you.
City council tonight. Too nice outside. to be
I
in the
know,
city
I
council.
know.
Oh.
I know. Look it up today.
Yes. That's why I'm like, I get the job. So I could do it.
All right, we'll go ahead and start the meeting of March 12th, 2024 to order. We'll start with the land acknowledgement. Counselor Clark.
Sure. Thank you. The Chinookian people known as the Clackamas and Cascades are the indigenous people of the land now inhabited by the city of Wood Village and other areas of the Columbia River. The village of the Lee Cockley, located near the today's Blue Lake Park. The ancestral life of these people included a seasonal round of resources gathering and stewardship of the Wapato fields and fishing areas of the Columbia River to the Cedar and Huckleberry gathering areas of the High Cascades. Introduced disease from early settlers dramatically reduced the number of these people. They signed the Willamette Valley Treaty of 1855 with the United States government and were forcibly removed to the Grand Ronde Indian Reservation. We thank the descendants of these tribes for being the original stewards and protectors of these lands since the time immemorial. We also acknowledge the systematic policies of genocide, relocation, and assimilation that still impact many of the indigenous Native American families today. We are honored by the collective work of many Native nations, leaders, and families who are demonstrating resilience, resistance, revitalization, healing, and creativity. We are honored to be guests upon these lands.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And today we're going to read the proclamation for Parkinson's Awareness Month, and Counselor Tan.
Thank you. Whereas Parkinson's disease is a chronic progressive neurological disease and is the second most common neurodegenerative disease in the United States. Whereas the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson Research is dedicated to finding a cure for Parkinson's disease through an aggressively funded research agenda and to ensuring the development of improved therapies for those living with Parkinson's today. Whereas an estimated more than 1 million people in the United States are currently living with Parkinson's disease, with an additional 90,000 individuals diagnosed annually. Whereas it's estimated that Parkinson's disease has a national economic burden of approximately $52 billion per year, with the cost estimated to rise over $80 billion by 2037. Whereas there is no known cure for Parkinson's disease and available treatments are limited in their ability to address patients' medical needs and remain effective over time. Whereas there is no known cure or drug to slow or halt the progression of the disease, and available treatments are limited in their ability to address patients' medical needs and remain effective over time. Whereas the City of Wood Village recognizes the efforts of the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Research as it leverages its core values of optimism, urgency, resourcefulness, collaboration, accountability, and persistence in problem solving to work on behalf of the 6 million people worldwide living with Parkinson's. Whereas increased research, education, and community support services are needed to find more effective treatments and to provide access to quality care to those living with the disease today.
Thank you. Greg, do we have any citizen comments?
Well, before we get to citizens' comments, we actually have a guest who does this on behalf of Parkinson's to say a few words about what this proclamation means, Parkinson's awareness, and Parkinson's support. And so we have Kevin Manfield.
Great.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Welcome.
welcome.
Good evening. Mayor and city council members, I want to thank you for inviting me today to talk to you a little bit about Parkinson's, what it's like living with it. I was diagnosed in 2001 with Parkinson's. We want to also thank you for letting us use this wonderful building today for our support group. And again, for next month, we also get to use this wonderful building. We appreciate very much. I want to make sure that you have our thanks for that. So I said, my name is Kevin Mansfield, and for the record, I live at 16343 Northeast Russell Street in Portland, Oregon. I've been a public policy advocate or ambassador with Michael J. Fox Foundation for 11 years now. I've been a facilitator with Parkinson's Resources of Oregon for the past 22 years. I said I was diagnosed in 2001. We want to thank the mayor and city council for proclaiming Wood Village as April's Parkinson's Awareness Month. This means a lot to the people living here in the city and as well as myself. We have, for our Parkinson's support group, we have people that live here in Wood Village, in Fairview, in Gresham, Sandy, East Portland, and I even have a couple that come clear in from Lake Oswego. When I was diagnosed in 2001, all my doctor told me, my neurologist told me, was that I had Parkinson's and come back and see her in 6 months. So not knowing anything about it and stuff, I went home and looked it up on the computer. And all this did was made me feel more depressed and sad because all it talked about was the advanced stages of Parkinson's. I finally found Parkinson's Resources of Oregon, and they were kind and talked to me for about an hour or two, calming me down, telling me about it being a slow progression disease in most cases, and helping me out that way, making me feel a lot better. They asked me at that time if I wanted to join a support group. At that time, there was 12 to 14 support groups, so they had a waiting list. After about a month or two, they called me back up and said that they had an opening for a support group, asked if I was interested, and I said, sure. So we went and we met at a doctor's office. It was more of a conference room down at Good Samaritan Hospital. There was 45 of us that met in that room, so it was standing room only. That happened for about 2 months. We decided that it was too big of a group for that small of a room, so we split the group up. Shortly after that, they asked me if I wanted to be a facilitator, told me the recommendations and said I had to commit at least 1 year. 22 years later, I'm still doing it, still love it, wouldn't want it anything different. As I said, back then, there was 12 to 14 support groups. Tell you how fast this disease is growing. Today, we have between 55 and 60 support groups. I just read in a newsletter yesterday that 2 more groups opened up. We have approximately 20 to 25,000 people living in Oregon with Parkinson's disease. We thought that the estimated was about 60,000 people being diagnosed in the United States a year. Last year, a new study came out that was put off by the Michael J. Fox Foundation, the Parkinson's Foundation, and one other, I can't remember at the top of my head. But they all did a census in the United States. And now we realize and come to know that there is 90,000 people a year diagnosed with Parkinson's. It's about 1 every 6 minutes. It is right now the number 2 disease, neurological disease right behind Alzheimer's, but it's soon going to pass. We figure that within the next 15 years that it will double. I handed you each an economic burden sheet tonight so you can kind of look over. Some of the numbers might have changed because numbers grow since this was printed. Right now, it's costing the government approximately $52 billion a year to help support Parkinson's. Out of that, the government pays half, the other half comes out of our pockets. We figure within the next 15 years that that number is going to grow to about $85 billion a year. Used to hear about Parkinson's mostly in people that are 60s, 70s, or 80s. Now it doesn't matter how old you are. Before the pandemic, we went to Washington, D.C. for about 4 days every year. We went up on Capitol Hill on one of those days. But I met a couple women that was 32 years old, having their first child that was diagnosed with Parkinson's. I met a gentleman of 22 years old that was diagnosed with Parkinson's. Of one of the many health fairs I go to, I was talking to an elderly man, and we were talking about Parkinson's stuff, and he started breaking out in tears, and I felt bad. I asked him if I had done something or said something to upset him. He said no, that it was a very rare case, but his 8-year-old grandson was diagnosed with Parkinson's. So we can see that this is a very growing disease. We don't know the nature of why it's, coming around and growing so much. Last year, I talked to our state representatives and senators, and we got a bill drawn up to have Oregon have a national national registry for Parkinson's. But unfortunately, there was so many bills presented that it along with 1,500 other bills didn't make it. I was going to try and go for it again this year, but I found out that this year's session was only like 35 days. They had already picked their 2 things that they wanted. So now that the session has ended, I believe, if not soon, I'm going to start working with the representatives and senators again and seeing if we can't push forward so we can get this done. By having a state registry, we will be able to find out exactly how many people in Oregon have Parkinson's, the hot spots are, what nationality it might be hitting the most and stuff. So this information will be passed on to scientists and stuff. And with all that information gathered, we'll be able to hopefully come up with a cure is our goal. If any of you are interested, like I said, we had a meeting today. Support group will be here again next month. We meet at the second Tuesday of the month from 2 to 3 p.m. If for some reason you would like to come, but you can't make it in person, let me know and I'll send you a link. We have a Zoom, a hybrid meeting that you're more than welcome to come to. So again, with that, unless you guys have any questions, I want to thank you for giving me the time to share this information with you. And thank you again for doing this for us.
Thank you. Any questions, comments?
Just want to say thank you for sharing your stories and raising awareness about Parkinson's. I know enough, but this was just very enlightening and insightful with what information that you've provided to us. So I appreciate it.
As I shared with you when we were back there, I have a close friend. His last name is Sweeney. So if you knew him, I don't know. And I realize it's a very large group that you have. And I've watched him, start out where he just found out about it and he told our group about it. And he had to quit piloting because that's what he did for a living. And this broke his heart. And it's just changed his life as well. And he is fairly young. He hasn't reached the age of where he'd have to quit being a commercial pilot yet. So it really has affected his life. So one of the things I noticed is in this is that it says that there's no medication, but he's actually on medication.
There's medication, there's just no cure for it.
Right, okay, because he takes medication for it. And when we come to, I go to meetings with him on another committee type thing, and it starts to wear off by the time the meeting's over, and he's actually our leader at this moment, and it starts to play out on him at that point. So we can definitely see that it's affecting him more now than it was many, many years ago.
Yeah, for me, it's the same thing. When my medication wears off, I just go downhill real fast.
Do you mind if we ask how much that medication costs per month for you?
For me, I'm fortunate and it's covered by my insurance, but they wanted to put me on one medication that wasn't covered by my insurance, so I couldn't take it, and that was going to cost me $3,000 a month out of my pocket.
Okay.
So we're talking to the federal legislation, always asking them to pass laws to make the prices for medication to come down, make it reasonable, try and get insurance companies to cover things for us. Because like many of us, I mean, we just can't afford it.
Right. So it's not just
we don't take it.
automobiles and wheelchairs and things like that towards the end of the process. It's part of that $52 billion is the ongoing costs of when you first find out about it and the medication to help you keep going with whatever activities you can, right?
Right.
Okay. That's what I was curious about.
I was about my mid-40s, I'd say about 45 when I was first diagnosed with Parkinson's and put me out of the workforce.
You had how long?
I was about 45 years old when it put me out of the workforce stuff. So I've been basically retired for 20 some years. So I had to have some purpose. That's when I found Parkinson's Resources of Oregon. I love helping other people and educating people as much as I can. And then they had a special presentation with the Fox Foundation. They were talking about passing a law to make Social Security accept Parkinson's as a degenerative disease. Because when I was first diagnosed, I had to wait 2 years fighting with the courts in order to get diagnosed because they didn't want to accept the non-motor skills as being part of the disease. So in 2019, I believe it was the first time in about 38 years that we got Social Security to change their mind.
Thank you. Mayor, Councilor Men, any comments, questions?
Thank you very much. And I also wanted to say thank you to Councilor Clark. I know sometimes it's difficult to talk about how much things cost, but it's really important to talk about medication costs and what it's doing with our community. So thank you very much, and thank you for the information. It was really helpful and quite astounding, quite educational.
I just express also my appreciation for you spending the evening here with us tonight, talking about your own personal experience, but also about this disease on a nationwide basis. So thank you very much, and we're pleased to take part in these proclamations.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for again educating us on what this is and just the barriers that are and just small ways that we can support. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Now we'll go to citizen comments on non-agenda items.
Say we have one. It's more of a relayed one. A community member living or associated with Sandy Boulevard towards the west end called last week and wanted to make a comment about the RVs on Sandy Boulevard towards the dead end portion. She couldn't be physically here and wanted to make arrangements that we'd call her. We couldn't make that connection for this evening. what time, when to call. But I did want to pass along the comment and concern about the number of people living in RVs on Sandy Boulevard, and that is our next priority area. Now that we've assisted those that had been on Halsey, that took many, many months. We knew in working with the Hope team that Sandy would be a step up in terms of challenge, because when you're having, mostly when people are in an RV, they consider that their home. And a number of them are very willing to go somewhere else. There's just nowhere else to go. Even if you're like, oh, we could get you in an apartment, because of past experiences and issues, they may be willing to try that, but don't want to give up the RV because in case something goes wrong, goes down, and there's no place to, even store it, let alone like an RV park that would accept, older RVs. Maybe there's no current registration, insurance, et cetera. And it's been something we've been pushing the joint office on for near 2 years for that type of model. And that's what we're continuing to push on now. And so the idea is getting the joint office to make some investments in this region, because right now there is only one park on the west side of the airport. So like on 33rd, and it's full. We need something out here for our community members, and then we can provide them the resource and options to otherwise relocate and have the ability to live their best lives. And then once that's complete, we'll be installing engineering barriers to prevent reoccurrences on Sandy. There's just no business need or practical need for having on-street parking. It's labeled no parking because there isn't a need there, but without some physical barriers, they're not impeding the right of way, so it's hard to prevent that. So it's a multi-step approach, and something we're working with the Hope team on, and continuing to pressure the joint office that we need resources out here, and this is a specific need. It's been needed for a while, so we'll continue to make contact with the community member as well as our neighbors living in RVs.
Thank you. Now we'll go to public safety report.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. As you probably are aware, Lieutenant Stewart, your usual chief, is away for training, so he asked me to fill in, and I always look for a good excuse to come back and say hello. So
Hello.
Welcome back.
This month, so for February, there was 116 dispatched calls with 179 self-initiated. It's roughly tracking on the 29-day average, and the administrative calls for service or non-emergency were 4 minutes and 34 seconds, and emergency was at 4 minutes and 47 seconds. I looked to see why that was longer. There was one anomaly call where somebody was on scene and it wasn't cleared for 9 minutes. So that one call threw it off by a minute and a half. There was 2 hit and runs this month. Both were the 23-500 block of Northeast Sandy at the box store area, unattended vehicles, and obviously nobody was injured because they were unattended. There were 2 reported stolen vehicles this month. And I believe that is all I wrote for stats. I did want to update you guys on a couple of things for February. The Comfort Dog program that I did have the privilege of working on for a long time when I was in this position. That finally came to, well, real close to fruition here in February. Carrie Oman, Deputy Carrie Oman, was selected to be the Comfort Dog handler, and the Comfort Dog, its name is Burton, or Bert for short. It's a long-haired German Shepherd. Because I'm not there, I don't know if she physically has the dog yet, but they're working on the very final things to where they will have the dog soon. So
Can you remind everyone what the Comfort Dog program is?
yeah, the Comfort Dog program was a program that I was assigned when I first came here, and I worked on for a variety of time. But what the program actually is it's essentially a physical it's a therapy dog that can be used basically for comfort of deputies, comfort of crime victims, and then just general comfort of community members. It's a dog that can be pet, that's encouraged to be pet, rather than traditional working dog that everyone wants to pet that we don't want to pet. So it was a cool project that I was assigned and had no knowledge of, and then grew to have more knowledge than I needed through a long process or whatever of acquiring one. But anyhow, I'm happy that that's happening. Hopefully you guys will, I'm sure you'll get to meet the duo soon when they are physically working. And then we also had polar plunge with the 5K here for Oregon Special Olympics on February 24th. The sheriff was there. I was there, your chief and my friend Rob Stewart was there. So it was a good time and for a good cause. And that is pretty much everything I have to report unless I can answer any questions.
There seemed to be more women that were involved in the plunge, according to the picture that was taken.
I don't know. I'd have to go back and look
That
at
was what my wife told me.
True. Yes, we had, I think we had 22 or 23 total. It turned out to be a gorgeous day for, at least it wasn't.
I was told I wasn't allowed to go.
There you go.
And any other questions or comments?
I have one quick, just a comment. In the weekly update, you read that I was invited to be part of a sergeant interview panel or assessment panel. And so, certainly I don't know what the outcome of that'll be. There's many layers to these things, but what I will say is the thoroughness that the sheriff's office has, I've been involved in several different recruitments, whether it's sergeant, lieutenant, they really take it seriously. These kind of, every position is an opportunity for a leadership position. The leadership position and title certainly an additional responsibility. The seriousness they take and the focus areas they have really represent, called the sheriff's office values, and they also mirror our community values in terms of, service, responsibility, honesty, empathy, et cetera. So I just want to thank for the opportunity to be part of that assessment, and just again, thank you for just the process that you use to ensure the best candidates move forward.
I appreciate that. I always get sidetracked when I'm preparing my notes for the things like that was in March and this is the February, but that is, there's been work already this month in March and I kind of just check that off the list. But I do want to say thanks very much for coming. It means a lot. It's hard to fill those panels. There's 3 different panels in testing plus proctoring that go on. And I, luckily, my panels with Greg Dirks, city manager, and my old counterpart from the FBI. So it was actually quite a fun day for spending 9 hours in a room interviewing people. We had a pretty good time.
Yeah, I got to play another deputy doing a phone call. So I had a little script and then like 3 or 4 sheets of if they say this is my response. So it was kind of fun. It was a fun role play because I was on a cell phone in our assessment room, and the candidate was in a whole other room on a cell phone. So they didn't even know it was me. So
I did have, I saw that I think the county, Gresham and Portland PD had a joint task force on retail theft. And then I did see some activity at the Walmart. I don't know is there anything you can speak on that and, those efforts there?
Absolutely. I just want to point out that was in March.
No, that's
Stuart's thunder, he's not here.
Got it right here because I had it pulled up and had the notes prepared, and then I'm like, oh, I better hold off. That's too much. But let's see, I have it right here. A multi-agency public safety mission was held on Friday, March 8th in the communities of Fairview, Troutdale, and Wood Village. It was organized by the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office. The mission primarily focused on retail theft and traffic safety. Police officers from the Portland Police Bureau, the Gresham Police Department also assisted Multnomah County Sheriff's deputies. The mission resulted in 43 traffic stops, 10 arrests. Deputies confiscated 1 handgun, and altogether the team recovered a little less than $2,500 in stolen merchandise.
One day.
Wow.
It was a good one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Great work. Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
It's good to see you again.
Yeah.
Made me smile.
At the time, it's always a pleasure seeing you all. I look forward to seeing you in the future.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you again.
Now we'll move on to review of bills paid. Any questions, comments?
No.
Move to consent calendar.
I'll move.
Have a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
First and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. No opposed. Now we'll move on to a Play East update.
Where's that at?
We do need an introduction. Not familiar with him.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening, I will be jumping over here and annual Play East report. In tonight's presentation, I will be covering these 7 areas. Please feel free to ask any questions at any time. During the winter term of this last fiscal year 2022-2023, we served 194 participants in 18 different classes. That was a 75% increase from last fiscal year during that same time. During this time, we also launched a new program of parkour with a local business called Parkour Revolution in Gresham. During this time, we also launched our pilot partnership with the city of Gresham. This provided us accessibility to providing classes inside Gresham city limits. Out of those 18 classes during that time, 4 of them were taking place inside Gresham city limits. In the spring, we served 193 participants in 17 programs. This is an increase of 34% from the last year. Here's a look of year-to-year registration. Last fiscal year, we served 714 registered participants, an increase of 49% from the last year.
That's great.
As for registration revenue, we're up 74% from last year, with the bulk coming from summer camps. Big factors are the increase in programs we offered, as well as cost of the registration to run these programs. Last fiscal year, we ended up with a little more than 200,000 in program revenue, and and having expenditures be more than a little more than 100,000. The biggest factors are the beginning fund balance. We actually had a 114% increase from what we budgeted, and the increase in programs and the partnership with the city of Gresham helped tremendously as well. And registrations were up 108% from the previous year. This past summer, we successfully offered 17 camps, serving 197 participants, a 17% increase from the last summer. We plan to offer more camps with the higher projections of registrations, but we did not anticipate the high increase of families traveling during the summer. That is something we are taking into account for this coming up summer, and we are adjusting those numbers accordingly, and we are hoping to have better outcomes of more of our camps running. We also served as a community site, offering a free summer lunch program in partnership with the Reynolds School District. We managed 2 sites, one being here at the Donald Robertson Park and the other one being at the Fairview Oaks Woods Apartments. During this time, we also launched our mobile Play East van, offering free recreational programs for those that came and grabbed a meal as well. For the fall, we offered 22 programs serving 231 participants. This is an increase of 46%. This is also an increase of how many classes we offered. Last fall, we offered 9. So this is a 144% increase on how many programs we offered as well. As for registration revenue, we are well in place to surpass last year's registration revenue, with, again, the biggest factor coming in the summer. And again, some of those things having to be the increase in summer camps that we're offering. And this, in July, Well, in May, we actually extended the partnership with the city of Gresham and we signed a 2-year contract with them. So we are able to offer some programming inside the city of Gresham. Halfway through the year, we have been able to cover 100 of our program expense through program revenue. This is a consistency that we've been doing through the program. 5 out of the last 6 years, we've been able to meet or exceed expenditures through our program revenue as well. Play East has always prided itself of being a community resource and connecting with their community members. Here is a list of all the events we participated during last calendar year. And 3 of these events comes being solely Play East events. And this is something we'll continue to do this year as well. Staff is in the final process of doing spring and summer programming. And we're super excited of the things we have planned and anticipate the growth in registration. As you were, I don't know if you guys were informed, but we got communication from Commissioner Stegman's office that they put an amendment into their county budget in providing $45,000 to pro-social activities for youth in East County. And those funds will actually come through Play East. So we've been given a grant for the remainder of this fiscal year to enhance our offerings and encourage more participation to our program. So what they'll come by is a partnership with the Department of Criminal Justice Family Services and the SUN program. Well, they will refer families to participate in our program, and through that grant, they will be subsidized to participate for the spring, and hopefully they'll be able to register for the summer as well.
Very nice.
So that's a pilot program. Big thanks to the Play East board and the vice chair of that board is the mayor, Mayor Minor. He's actually been the mastermind behind that grant process. And here's just some fun pictures and recaps of last year and some activities we've been in. That's it, and I'll take any questions you guys might have.
So when you say you're incorporating the city of Gresham, I love the fact that they're getting involved, but are you slowly taking over their recreation?
Well, the city of Gresham actively doesn't have a recreation program. They have a Parks and Recreation department, but they themselves don't offer any programming. So they contract out any of their programmings that they do offer. So kind of what that partnership means is, so they are kicking us $10,000 every quarter for administration costs, and they are reimbursing us for every scholarship awarded to Gresham residents. Doesn't matter where the program takes place, but what that allows us is to actually provide program inside Gresham city limits. It still holds the Play East model, so anybody's able to register and participate in those programs, but now they just take place inside Gresham city limits.
Well, we knew that a lot of people were coming from Gresham for our Easter egg hunt anyway, so.
Yeah.
And a lot of other things that we did. So this is a wonderful partnership.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. We've seen
I'm glad
a
that they're
huge increase.
recognizing Play East.
Yeah, with summer camps as well. Summer camps have been one of those that we've seen them take a lot of interest in there.
Yeah, but you're not physically going up into the city of Gresham and working, or are you?
No, so I have a person that I have contact with, and so them and we coordinate facility use, scheduling and things of that nature. I'll go. Me or Nancy will go look at the camps just because, again, it is our program, so we want to ensure
Well, that's good.
quality control.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, but they absorb any expense that has to do with the program. So facility rental, there's a fee to it. They absorb it. They're also helping us market for Gresham residents and things of that nature.
You're doing the administrative side of it,
Yes.
basically then.
Correct. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. That's awesome. Sorry, I'm too excited.
He's going to register for summer camp.
What's that?
I said you're going to register for
Oh,
summer
yeah,
camp.
yeah, yeah. I'll shave my beard. Was that it? Well, you can ask questions too. You can.
Thanks, Jairo. That was great.
Director Real Campos, I have just a comment and a question for you. Are you still on the podium?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay. Well, one of the things is just remind me, even though I sit on the board, the lunch program has always been one that I really appreciated Play East taking charge of for the kids in the summertime. The Reynolds School District does provide those lunches. Am I right there?
Correct. So they do, they provide all the meals for students 18 and younger. What we've been able to do is we've made our sites to be family sites. So what that means is anyone 18 and older that are coming with children to participate in the program, they are also eligible for their lunch. What we end up doing is just reimbursing the school district for those meals that are for 18 and older. We've seen that be a cultural barrier for cultures. Not just having the children needing meals, but the adults as well. So we felt that this was a good opportunity to look at this as a more holistic opportunity. And so the school district through their funding will cover youth 18 and younger, and then we'll cover anybody 18 and older, and they'll still get a free meal.
You know, that's every time I hear that, it's a picture of what Play East is all about. It's not just about activities for kids, but it's a community builder, and it provides those lunches during the summer when kids aren't in school and others an opportunity for lunches. And I would say that the van that we have now with Play East, and you're able to be on site with that, not only represents Play East, but it also helps in just getting those lunches to families in our communities. So thanks. I appreciate that reminder of how that's working, and the fact that we're feeding not only those kids, but families that may need a meal too. Well, example. So I want to ask you this, and what is, as we talk, and certainly this program right now, that it's a huge success, and what you've talked about tonight is growth, 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 growth. What do you envision, and maybe share some of your thoughts on what Play East may look like in 5 years or in the future? The board's had some conversations with it, but why don't you share what you're thinking and where that might, where Play East might be looking out for more opportunities?
Yeah, so obviously the direction of Play East is in big part of what the board's idea is. But personally, I think continuing the growth of the partnerships that we currently have. So with the city of Gresham and now the county as well. And so looking at those in a more permanent manner, I think would be just the best thing possible for our communities out here in East County. And you know, if we're dreaming big and we're looking towards the future, maybe look at acquiring some different capital, you know, our own building per se, or we all know that the program continues to be facility poor, and so we're leaning on our partnerships with the Reynolds School District, which they've been amazing. The Wood Village Baptist Church, the city of Wood Village here, the city of Fairview as well. But that's a lot of coordination, and even with the city of Gresham coordinating out. So if the idea was to continue the growth, I think a central location would be ideal. That way we could run things and manage those things, I think, with a better quality control that currently just become a little bit more difficult logistically. But I think those are my aspirations as we look for the future, just continuing those partnerships and growth there as they've been key to our success.
Thank you.
He had mentioned that, like Mayor said about growth, and that you continue to add more, whether it be different activities or how do you guys gauge what to add? Is it based on like there's a massive amount of enrollment and we have a capacity and now we know that there's more of a need in soccer, or is that how, or is it more like, we've got soccer, basketball, and we have all these basics covered, but then, oh, here's a different idea.
A little bit of like everything. So I think currently our program has the capacity to grow in those certain programs that we currently offer. But even then, we look at those that we continue to get maxed out. And so looking to the opportunities to see if we can offer more of those, and if our current instructors or providers can't, we're trying to identify who else can. Just perfect example, our piano program is one of our most popular programs since the start of the existence of Play East, and currently we only have one instructor. And their capacity is at max on providing this program. So that's really our focus right now, is to see how we can grow that program. We currently have a full class with a full wait list of another full class just waiting to participate that aren't eligible to participate just because, again, we don't have that second instructor. But so really looking at those that are kind of our bread and butter and say, okay, this is where we need to expand while our other areas have that room to expand. Other ways we learn on what ideas to do is we do ask our participants. We give them a survey at the end of every term and say, we also want to find out where are areas of where we can improve ourselves. And then we ask them for feedback, what else are we missing? And certain things that come up that unfortunately right now it's not in our foreseeable future is swim lessons, but looking at partnerships of how we can partner up with Mount Hood or Mount Hood Aquatics and see they're the only pools nearby, and seeing how we can partner with them to provide something there, or just refer them to them as a partner as well. So we have all sorts of ways to gauge what the community wants and with what we're offering, what the community needs.
Just a side note, doesn't Reynolds Middle School have a pool or not anymore?
They do, but it's under my understanding that the school district doesn't operate it. They don't administer or manage it. They actually, an outside group manages it.
Interesting.
It is.
As you build things. Not on. I can see where you would need a facility as you grow, then being able to get things out quicker and stuff like that is a big plus, because if you get overwhelmed, your volunteers get overwhelmed and then they'll want to quit. And so then that starts to impact the entire program. And so, yeah, if you can't have both, then it's a real disaster. So, yeah. And I really believe it's just like City Hall here is one of the reasons why Play East is kind of working for us as a city. Not, I realize Fairview has a nice City Hall and all of that, but the point is that's the reason why this is working for us.
I mean, this facility here just provides a lot of the amenities we need.
Yeah, that's
the park has running water and restrooms, and so when you're running summer camps, those are a necessity. They're not an amenity, they're a necessity. So
right.
When I'm looking at where we do programming, those are things that need to be checked off before we can say, yeah, we will run programming there. So those two, all of that as well.
if I can add to that a little bit, just from discussions, we've also, Play East, has also stepped in and filled voids. And the lunch program was an example of that when, that lunch program, was not fulfilling the needs, as Jairo had said earlier, they filled that need. But I also see it as a source that it will fill needs. We have talked some in the board about fine arts, and Jairo just talked about piano. We've talked about the fine arts and how we may be able to expand that. But the other thing that certainly I see is, in just my background in schools, budgets go up and down with schools, as they do often with a lot of agencies. But some of the first activities that unfortunately have to be cut in schools becomes co-curricular activities, the after-school activities, the clubs, and when those start to get cut, and that hasn't happened. Although I spent a lot of my career reducing budgets, that hasn't happened in the near recently. But that also is a place that I see a community organization like Play East also being able to respond to situations that come up that we may not anticipate. So I'll just add to that question and a comment there. So thank you.
I could add two quick questions. I know we're about out of time on this agenda topic. One, you mentioned briefly about the scholarship program and how Gresham reimbursed, but I'm hoping you can spend just a quick minute and explain to people how that works and what it's like, and also just remind people of the upcoming fundraiser.
Yeah, so our board has done a great job in creating a policy of our scholarship program to be really low barrier. And so with our new software system provides a great opportunity to do that. So what we've been able to do is kind of mirror what the Reynolds School District does for free and reduced lunch. So basically, if a family is looking to register and needs some assistance, they just fill out a small questionnaire. And one of the questionnaires basically says, what school do you go to? And if that school is one of the 16 schools out of the 16 schools now from Reynolds School District that receives free and reduced lunch, it's an automatic 50% scholarship. Now, if that doesn't meet the immediate need of the family, it's just a quick discussion. And we have the full authority to scale that up to either a 75% and max an 80% off scholarship for that family to participate in our program. And the other piece to that policy is that that scholarship sticks to that account for a whole calendar year. So that is reducing barriers and impacts of the continuous asking of assistance, understanding that sometimes just asking itself is a barrier. So we're trying to do as least of those barriers as possible. So it's a one-time application for a full year. After that, if they're still in need, is just a resubmittal. And then they just attach that. It is a resubmittal, it's a renewal, and we will continue that same percentage that was previously granted before. Now, if things have changed, either they don't need as much or they need more, then again, that's just a further conversation we have with them. But I think that has tremendously increased our scholarship recipients, which I think has been a goal of the Play East board, to allow as many people to participate and not have the financial be a barrier to them. And our fundraiser, so we have our 7th annual fundraiser, and the purpose of that is to do multiple things. One is to celebrate the program, but two, that's a big portion of how we are able to subsidize some of these scholarships as well. And so our fundraiser is scheduled for Thursday, May 9th at 6 p.m. It will be held at the Fairview Food Plaza. You guys are all more than welcome to come. We'll have raffles and just have a great time. It is a superhero theme, so costumes aren't required, but they're highly encouraged. And so we will hope to see everyone there.
Is that at the Fork, you said?
May 9th, right?
Aye.
May 9th.
May 9th. At the Fork,
Oh,
yeah.
at the Fork. I thought you said the Fork.
That's a full.
I call it the Fairview Food Plaza.
We're ignoring the Fork.
Yes, AKA the fort
Sorry, what time again? May the 9th.
at 6 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
Since you're not there to relieve yourself, you are relieved.
Sorry. I thought I was relieved, but I won't. We'll move on to ordinance 2024 fire code revision.
Thank you, Council President. Members of the council, you're getting the Greg show for a little bit. This is ordinance 2-2024, bringing back the state fire code updates that we talked about last month. When I did fire research for my grad work, I was told never put fire images when you're talking about something fire related. So what do? I have an animated fire image for my first slide. So these are state required fire code updates. The state typically would update their state code every 3 to 5 years. Our last code update was in 2010 with the intent of trying to make it more perpetual and anticipating those changes by adopting by reference. Well, there were a few little gaps in that, and we talked about that at the meeting February 13th. So this doesn't necessarily change, what the city does, the expectations for our contracted provider, Gresham Fire, and its fire officials. It's just bringing us up to state code with the hope that this now creates, we don't have to do this, at least maybe not for another decade or so. What this does not do that we talked about February 13th is that backyard burn ban. That will be a separate process based on our discussion where we want to really do some engagement, outreach, and roll that out, let people know, why this is being recommended and what the benefits of prohibiting backyard burning does. And also what it doesn't do, which is you could still have, your little fire pit, outdoor fireplace, barbecue, etc. So if you choose to adopt this, we'll make the changes to our actual code, send that to Gresham, which will then verify with the state fire marshal that we are in compliance. And then we'll be doing our outreach on the backyard burn ban. And then, I think June, July time for that to come back to you all for that adoption consideration and then move forward in that process. So kept it pretty short and sweet because we went through the details at the last meeting or a few meetings ago, but happy to answer any questions. I do have the suggested motion in front of you. I just want to make it known that if it's not unanimous vote for the first reading and adoption, we just have to bring it back at a future meeting for that second and final vote.
I will take a motion or questions, comments.
No questions, Jim.
I will entertain a motion then.
I move to adopt ordinance 2-2024, adopting revisions to the city's municipal code related to the fire and life safety code to be consistent with state regulations.
I'll second that.
First and second, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I saw John say aye.
Aye. Thanks,
Aye.
Mark.
Motion carries.
All right. Thank you very much.
We'll move on to resolution 5-2024, 3-city county AMR response.
All right, thank you again. This one will take a little bit more time than the previous one. And yes, that picture is blurry for a reason. I didn't want to promote any kind of one ambulance company or not. It's just showing an ambulance. So this is a resolution talking about ambulance reform, both at a county level as well as the 3 cities, even 4 cities, as we've continued our conversation on fire and emergency services and response. So a bit of background on this. Our counties in Oregon are required by the state to develop what's called an ambulance and emergency medical services plan. The county, Multnomah County, has had theirs in place since 1994. They did an update in 2016. And just recently, you might have seen in the news a couple of weeks ago, the chairs announced, they're reopening their ambulance plan. So when you're hearing that, this is the plan that they're reopening, and they're doing it sooner than they thought based on a couple of factors we'll get into here momentarily. A couple of things to point out with the development and implementation of that plan. While the county is, required by the state to do it, they haven't meaningfully ever involved, us as a city, We're also unaware that they've actually involved other cities, maybe some Portland aspects, but certainly not Gresham Fire, not our neighbors around us, and what the needs are, the response concerns, et cetera. That was especially true in 2016 when we actively asked to be part of this process. And to say we were denied, we just didn't even warrant an invitation to be denied. And so what's happened, did what they put together work? It worked in the conditions that existed at that time. What we saw in 2020, we saw a lot in 2020. One thing it did do, it really upended a lot of service models and responses. And we saw that in ambulances, responding to pandemic-related calls, substance abuse, frontline care, mental health. It dramatically put a big strain on an imperfect system, and it accentuated those flaws and issues. And so with that, we've seen over the past 3 and 4 years, these flaws in the system and calls for action to make revisions, and not seeing action or revisions towards those who are responsible for medical services, their needs. So while the county is mandated to be responsible for it, the cities, Gresham Fire, those providing that service are actually, impacted by the service. And we just haven't seen that meaningful engagement. So per the county's current plan, ambulance response time is supposed to average 8 minutes or less countywide, and that's part of a problem. And we've seen this historically it's easier to meet that, the denser you are, and you can kind of stack your service around that. And then, it separates the further you get out from Central City. And for Multnomah County, in a way that makes sense. You have Savi's Island and natural areas of the gorge. You're not getting 8 minutes in some of those more rural and natural areas. However, I would argue Wood Village, Fairview, Troutdale, Gresham, we are not rural areas. We're very much, dense and urban, not typically unlike a Portland, but we see response times much, much greater than the 8 minutes. And so AMR, even countywide, hasn't been able to meet that response time. And you probably saw some of that in the news where the county is starting to find them and require corrective action plans. AMR's response to that is saying, hey, you're requiring us to have 2 EMTs or 2 paramedics on every ambulance. Now, granted, that's the agreement which AMR entered into when they took on this contract. So it wasn't a surprise. It wasn't like a change. AMR is saying it's really hard to get good paramedics now. A lot of them have left, relocated, not unlike other industries. We would like to do where it's 1 paramedic, 1 EMT, but for what's called like an advanced life support unit, which would still have 2 paramedics on board. And then you have basic life support, which would have a paramedic and an EMT. Part of the argument is on a lot of calls, fire, whether it's Portland or Gresham or, District 10 or other districts, they respond to a lot of medical calls, and they've stabilized, a patient or close to stabilized a patient. Ambulance is there for transport and to keep stabilized through that transport process. So great, you've got 2 paramedics. Last I checked, to get to a hospital, someone's got to drive it. So you may have 2 paramedics, on scene, help load, otherwise stabilize. On transport, you only get 1 paramedic in the back, the other one is driving. So what actually happens, especially in advanced life support, is a fire representative, a licensed certified firefighter paramedic will hop in the back as well to be that second paramedic. So the thought is, well, if you do 1 paramedic, 1 EMT, that's a larger pool to draw from, and you could use those basic life support units on the calls that don't require advanced life support. So you're putting more ambulances on the road, you'll reduce response times. Portland Fire and Gresham Fire have, I don't want to say necessarily signed off on that model or method, but are encouraging the county to try it at least. In talking with the Gresham chief, the thought process is, I just want an ambulance soon, whether it's a paramedic, an EMT, 2 EMTs, 2 paramedics. I don't care. I want an ambulance sooner than later. And right now, given, the hiring challenges and things being said, is this could be a way to put more ambulances on the road. And talking with county representatives, they have a slightly different story and some nuances to that. Regardless, this resolution is supporting. We have a lack of ambulances, that is known. Response time is too high, that is known. If we can do something in an interim to help bring more ambulances and response times down, we should try to explore that. And we're also asking, we want to be part of this, since you've opened this up, policy up, we want to be part of that. We need to be part of that. You're responsible for it, we're accountable for it. And so this resolution before you, it mirrors what Gresham sent a few weeks ago, and it's very similar for the three cities. And again, that unified approach. And luckily, there's been some, since this was first started, crafted and drafted, there has been movement at the county chair level, like I said, to reopen that policy and look at some new ways of doing things. So I do have a couple suggested floor revisions for this resolution based on some of these newer things. So what this resolution does, again, it highlights that history of the emergency services plan and the lack of city partnership involvement in the creation of that. Highlights the low staffing levels and the ambulance shortage, long response times, and we need to do something about that. And again, it's encouraging looking at, to the extent we can, piloting a process, a project, kind of a solution while we're looking at the whole. The suggestions to make are on points 3 and 9 of that resolution. Number 3, I didn't strike out what I deleted. It was a little harsh language. The county has not historically sought meaningful input from the city. Instead of has basically never ever asked us anything. Because we have seen, especially when the county got word we were also doing this resolution, they started reaching out and think we're going to be invited to a larger table. I don't know that we will, but at least it got their attention that we have been saying this is a problem. We want to be part of this conversation. They're now taking it more seriously about our request. So I just wanted to highlight that historically we haven't been invited to the table, but hopefully we will. And then for the bullet point 9, deleting just the last sentence there. Again, we saw recently the chair opening up the whole emergency services plan early, trying to address this concern. It may not be as timely or expedited this process, I think, as we would want or hope for. And again, some conversations recently with county representatives, there's a lot of stuff behind the doors that happens. There's union considerations, state considerations, processes, evaluations. And, my response to that was, great. Why didn't you tell us this, 3 months ago? Needless to say, though, it wouldn't be fair to include that last sentence since we are seeing movement. So I would recommend and suggest that you just make those floor changes to the resolution or resolution as recommended if you so choose to adopt. So next steps, if approved, and approved with the edits, we'll make those, send them on the county and our other partner cities. We also have crafted a companion letter to go with the resolution. And what that letter also does is we are seeking AMR response data. We've asked for it several times. We're told by county reps, oh, it's not our data, so we don't have to provide it. AMR says it's confidential data. Someone has this data, and the point of us getting it is to show the disparity between, call it Central Portland or Portland proper response times and Outer East County response times, and that needs to be addressed. We've also asked for the county to stop hamstringing the vote on the BOAC, that's Bureau of Emergency Communications, or 911 IGA. This has been held up for 3 years due to the county. Part of the change was having AMR pay for their proportionate portion of dispatch calls. They are the only for-profit partner in 911 that doesn't pay for their portion of dispatch. And as public agencies footing that bill, it seemed reasonable that they pay their portion. The county didn't like that and have held up the process. So we're saying, please stop holding up the process. And lastly, we're trying to put together a 3 cities city council meeting in June to discuss, fire emergency services, that response plan, what we're going to do with fire, what we can do with medical. And we would really love, the chair or the representative's participation in that meeting. So as they're putting together that service plan, and as we're talking about what the needs are and how we want to build or develop a service that meets our needs, that can all be baked in at the same time, or at least share information of why what we think should happen that we see other departments or districts do, why we can't do that. So those are what's in the letter. So that with the letter and resolution, it's really just asking to be part of this bigger discussion. So with that, happy to answer any more questions, thoughts, concerns, and there's a suggested motion.
Questions?
None.
Mayor, Councilor Men, any questions?
None from me.
No, well done, summary there, Greg. Thank you.
I just, quick comment, I think the region is looking at us collectively coming together and I think that is, I don't want to say sparking fear, but it's sparking some conversation because I don't think it's ever been done. So I think our conversation that we've had at the retreat about fire services is also piquing other people's interests and probably trying to figure out why. If it's not broken for others, why is somebody trying to fix it? And so I did see a report in the news about our retreat, and so I'm just glad to hear that the county is actually reaching out, and hopefully, that they will allow us to be at the table to have these discussions.
I think again, that's the hope, that's the goal. And when you think about Multnomah County as a whole and the four cities as a whole, that's about 20% of the county's population. So when we're all lockstep together, especially on a singular issue with one voice, that's really hard to ignore. So we may have our differences in some areas, and when we come together, it is powerful.
So we'll entertain a motion.
Yes, sir. I move to approve resolution 5-2024 with the recommended changes that you've made, Greg. A resolution supporting ambulance reform in Multnomah County.
I second that.
First and second, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you very much. You'll get a slight reprieve from me and get a talk with Seth.
All right, we'll move to facility use fee.
And then for those on internet land, we're just loading up the presentation.
Yeah.
Drop it in.
Got saved to the wrong folder, so we'll just take a moment here, get a bio break, water.
Shall we sing some barbershop quartet or something?
Becky, according to her, I'm not allowed to sing or dance, but Becky's
Oh,
not
I
here,
knew
so
I bet
Yeah.
she's watching though.
I doubt that very much.
Well, Eric's the newest one here, so she
Oh.
should start us off. Yeah. She's also the quietest. You're just a note taker right now.
She's been quiet. She's interrupted her.
Quiet.
To just a couple quick updates. So since we're here and we can not hold it till the end, we will at your next meeting bring budget committee candidates forward for your consideration. They're all existing board members, whether it's parks or planning, and so there's no need for interviews. We'll just bring the applications forward for your appointment consideration. So we did get 4. And so we're very pleased, and it's a great group of folks that you'll see at your next agenda. So budget committee looks to be full if you accept all of the appointments.
Does that fill it with the 4 or?
Yes, because we had 2, so we needed a minimum of 3. So having
gotcha.
6 is actually great.
Okay, gotcha.
And now back to regularly scheduled programming with Seth.
Sorry for that. So included in your council packet is a staff report. I'm going to hit the highlights of that and then solicit some feedback once you guys have had a chance to kind of look at the numbers and mull things over a little bit. So just for a little bit of background, the last time you guys saw a meaningful discussion about facility use fees was in June of 2021. We had just kind of gotten settled into the building, wanted to get the space activated, started getting some interest, so brought forward some pricing proposals, comparable facilities. We looked at in gratis use, essentially free use for community partners. And also we had a discussion about alcohol, which was good. And so we piloted allowing alcohol at some of the events to be hosted here. And this should give you guys a good sense for kind of what's been happening in the last 2 years. So included here is kind of what the pricing has been for the last 2 years. We have different rates based on whether or not someone's a community member / resident / or affiliate. And then also if somebody's a business or someone from outside Wood Village, a private citizen wants to rent this facility. And we have different pricing based on whether or not it's premium time, like the weekend or in the evening for meetings versus midday during the week. And I also included as part of your packet, the form that was developed by staff. And it was a collective effort by everyone to kind of go through all of the things we needed for legal indemnification, insurance, setting expectations, clear communication for folks who are looking to use this, as well as a checklist for when you rent the facility, what condition is expected to be returned in. So if you have a chance to look at that, that should provide all kinds of detail you probably have no desire to hear me read out loud. So.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
What insurance are they putting in as an individual?
So most insurance companies, like if you're doing a wedding or a party, you can get a rider onto your homeowner's insurance policy.
Oh,
So, and so one-time use, and it's generally not particularly costly. Some insurance carriers allow you to do that in gratis.
I say it really depends on kind of your history, your relationship with an insurance company. We've seen it where, you know, again, if there's no alcohol, you know, they may just add it for the one day, or, you know, something under 100 is what we've seen. We've also seen it, you know, if you don't own a home and you're trying to get, there are programs for like 1 day, this type of use thing. They're, you know, they're a bit more, you know, $150, $200, but then certainly when you start looking at the alcohol liability, that does increase, whether you've got homeowners you can add on or you're trying to get an additional policy. But there are, again, programs for kind of those specific events and things.
so we're saying that they're required to have that.
The only time they're required to have insurance is when they have alcohol or they do an all-day rental on the weekend.
Yeah, when staff is not here, they're required to get insurance. When there's alcohol, it's additional alcohol liability insurance.
Okay.
So for example, the meeting this afternoon, that was an in gratis and we didn't require insurance because we were here to keep an eye on the place.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's mostly that. I mean, we don't want to assume anyone's gonna wreck it, but we feel a little bit better when we have someone around and there's a presence that will be able to catch that quickly.
We have had to make one claim on someone's insurance. We made a claim on someone's insurance. They put non-blue tape on our walls and the paint came off.
So, yeah. Other than that, it's been, I think that's the only one I can recall where we've had, and everything else has been pretty
okay. I mean, sometimes there's a bit of, when I say garbage, like it's in a garbage can. It's not like there's trash strewn about. Maybe there's a bit of, you know, cake left in the fridge. Somehow we take care of that.
By employees at the end of the day, right? Yeah, I got you.
We do that for free. We don't charge them
It's tough.
a damaged product.
You guys,
Dispose of it.
yeah.
Yeah. So in the 2 years, we went back and looked at the forms that have been filled out. So we've hosted a total of 88 paid or free meetings here. So that's about, if you figure that's 24 months, it works out to about 4 a year. Now, you'll see when we first started the program, this is kind of a frequency graph starting in January of 2022. For the first couple of months, we didn't get a lot because we hadn't gotten enough lead time or interest generated. And then once people started looking at it. We started getting some interest in the summer, and since then, we've been averaging more like 6 a month in the last year. So of the total meetings, we've had a big chunk of that was Reynolds School Board meetings. When they were having some construction, they had 31 of their board meetings here. Another 31 of the meetings were free or gratis use, and we had 26 uses that were paid. Oh, what does that translate into for money? Because we always start with money. It's my favorite topic. Reynolds paid about $10,000 for holding those 31 meetings, which worked out to about $350 a meeting. They reserved it from 5:30 to 10, and we gave them a lead time for cleanup and tear down. And they also used the AV system and the broadcasts. So it was a good deal, I think, all around. They got
And we gave kind of exclusive use it was their board meeting, so they knew when it was going to be, and we'd book it out for, 6-7 months at a time. They weren't sure when their project was going to wrap up. So hence kind of the cost for that versus when they hold like a one-off, they need a space for 2 hours in the afternoon. We don't charge for that kind of stuff. We do, the in gratis, but since it was for a year and a half, give or take, and booked out, that's what
they had it on Wednesdays, every other Wednesday. So we also had, the 26 other events, fees range from $50 to $700, depending on the number of hours and what all they were using. So you can kind of see most of the events fell somewhere between $200 and $400 to rent. But the total over 2 years from both programs is about $20,000. About half of that was from Reynolds, but half of that was from the other meetings. So let's take a look at the in gratis use, who's using it. So as Greg said, we had some users, Reynolds School District used some free meeting space. Those were like team meetings, some retreats, just kind of general staff meetings if they needed some overflow. MCAS is Multnomah County Animal Services. So it's pound.
Right.
They're probably not supposed to call them that, but I grew up in the 80s and they had to show
Yes.
pound puppies. So that's the way I think of animal services. Multnomah County, other departments in Multnomah County have also used it. The Leaders Naturalis group. And then we had a couple one-offs and then also Parkinson's Resources of Oregon. So the one thing I want to highlight here is that most of the in gratis use was during the work week in the mornings or during the day. We didn't have, you look at that, basically 23 of the meetings happened during business hours. And if you look at the midweek was really where the demand for in gratis use was, which is great for us because again, we can monitor it. It's generally not in use at that time by us. And so we're happy to provide that to some of our approved partner agencies.
And then just to add, like the Leaders Naturalis, typically is we had a interest in talking with them and partnering with stuff. So like, hey, have your meeting here. And we would do our, pitch or ask or coordination and then let them hold the rest of their meeting in this space. So those were in the evening time. So some of those evenings were actually, I'll call it a joint venture.
Yes. So the meetings that actually ended up paying, these were very different. The majority of these are on the weekend. So, we had talked quite a bit when we launched this about weddings, because there's a definite pricing differential for wedding venues versus regular meeting venues. We haven't gotten a lot of weddings. We have hosted one. Everything's been birthday parties and baby showers. If you look at the list, this is kind of the frequency of what happened in birthday party, baby shower. We have some retirements, graduations, family dinners. There's really kind of a hodgepodge, but it's personal meetings. Things that are a little bit smaller. And we had talked, when we initially opened, we talked about doing some advertising for weddings and we had staff look into that. There wasn't really a good way to do that didn't involve either social media blasts or There are some trade organizations that do some promotions for that, but those are all paid. And so since we were first starting out, we didn't want to, and there was some discussion about whether or not we wanted to market this to people as a venue for weddings to come from out of town to use or not. We kind of decided not to pay for it and kind of let's see how things shook out. So that's kind of, I wanted to follow up on that because it was part of the discussion we had in June of 2021. And a lot of the comps that we had for a facility this size for public got a lot of usage from weddings. That was kind of a conversation, which if you're not having weddings, you're also not really serving a lot of alcohol. So of those 26 paid meetings, only 5 of them actually chose to serve or provide alcohol at their events. So hasn't been a huge concern or issue. We haven't had any negative incidents from that, but we also haven't had a lot of usage that's been geared towards that. And it might be that the liability insurance portion of that discourages it, but it also doesn't discourage everyone from using it because if they want it, they can purchase it and provide the insurance. So, and we do have, I will highlight that when we set this up, if you rent this council chambers, you get both the kitchen, the council chambers, the conference room. There are also, I think, 9 in gratis use and 3 paid use for just the conference room. So those have happened. And there's been some interest in that just as a smaller meeting space and getting the whole thing. So in conclusion, you guys had asked us last month to kind of bring some statistics back on the program. These are points that we can discuss, or if we have any feedback, want to see any changes. I kind of looked at structured them as, we have the fee structure. If you want us to review that, see if that's still appropriate, including the free usage. Are there any types of events that we should be looking to attract more of? And then would you want us to do any advertising for pushing particular types of events? So that's all I have for my presentation. Willing to take any questions, feedback, or discussion from council on any of what's been presented here tonight.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, I do have a couple of questions, Seth. First, I'm pleased to see the report and that our facility is being used. Any data on the use from residents in Wood Village or residents of the 3 cities or East County? Have we been keeping that data?
Yes, we have, and I can follow up with you on that. I believe most of the paid meetings were from residents. I can think of probably 5 or 6 of those that were from people outside the community, but it's been primarily people within the community.
We do get a number of people from Troutdale and Fairview. They say, well, can I have the Wood Village rate? I live just down the street. I'm like, yeah, but you live in the wrong town.
Okay.
You know,
Oh, good.
square mile.
Oh, to get
Yeah.
the community member rate.
They
So it's
get
a
a
discounted
higher
rate. No, we don't
Oh.
turn anyone away that wants to use it.
Oh,
It's just
okay.
they ask for the community member rate.
So
Yeah.
they
The question about feedback from the users. Have you received feedback from the users? And if you have, what's been some of that?
Generally not much. Some of the feedback is they didn't know how to use their key card. But that's okay because we can, unlock it remotely if they were having issues. And so we've never had an issue if someone couldn't get in the building that had it reserved. I think a couple other comments, people didn't know where to put the garbage, even though we'd showed where the garbage enclosure is outside.
A lot of the interaction is with folks who want to use the audio visual equipment. So we do offer training if someone wants to use the microphone setup. We don't have a lot of that.
I mean, what we typically do when someone wants to reserve it, like on a weekend, they come in on the Friday to pick up the key. And the key is programmed for that a day and time range. So that's because they have the key on a Friday doesn't mean they're partying Friday night. It's useless to them. So when they do pick up the key, we go over again, the overall policy, the expectations of, cleaning up after your event and what that means, where the extra garbage bags are, the cans. And then if they do have an audiovisual request, again, kind of where the plugins are on the table, how to use the pad over there, and kind of doing a quick training on it. So that's generally avoided a lot of issues day of an event. The other thing we do, and you saw it in your packet, for the configuration of the dais, we have a couple of options for that layout. And that helps with staff again, because of unplugging things, the delicate nature of some of it, we take care of that. And that's been generally well received and respected, of people not trying to muscle stuff
And
around.
to get back to your question, Mr. Mayor, we have good feedback loops with the groups that use it often. So Reynolds School District, Multnomah County, Multnomah County Animal Control, the Leaders Naturalis group. A lot of the other ones are one-offs where we haven't gotten a lot of repeat birthday party, baby shower usage. So, and to be fair, to be honest, we don't really have a good way of getting an evaluation or feedback from folks other than just kind of ad hoc.
Yeah,
Is
well, I would,
something-
yeah, I don't, I'm not suggesting an exit interview with everybody. I think if you're getting feedback from our regular users and it's positive, and it sounds like you're responding to helping people learn how, use the stuff. So, just in general, our fee appears to be that we adopted appears to be, well, I would say very reasonable, especially when you have access to a whole kitchen. You have access to the dinnerware. So all of that seems to be seems to be reasonable to me. So my question then is, how does that fee look to you, as in support of the use of the facilities? It looks like we're collecting the money, and should be adequate based on, I guess, buying some more blue tape for people, but adequate for protecting our investment and our taxpayers' investment in our facility. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think, I'm staff, we're not recommending any change in the fee either to increase or decrease. And we haven't raised it since we put this in place. It's, in my mind, it's more of an incentive to make sure that whoever's using it values and respects the space. And that's why for the in gratis use, all of those have to be approved by Greg before they're allowed to use that. We want to make sure that there's either some synergy for the community in providing a public benefit, if they get it for free, and then if not, then there's a fee. And that's mostly, we don't have a lot of costs that have come up. Like Greg said, we don't have a lot of damage. It does take a little bit of staff time to coordinate the reservation and do that, but I think it's not a huge moneymaker, but at the same time, I don't know that it should be. And that was kind of part of the discussion back in 2021 of we want this to be used by the community, but it's also an asset that we need to be fiscally responsible for.
Yeah,
So
and I don't think we've seen a lot of additional wear and tear from the events people are holding. So, the money's received, yeah, that'll help go towards when we clean the carpets, clean the chairs, but which we would have to do that anyway. And I'm not seeing an increase in frequency in that need based on these rentals, so.
Well,
How about-
I'm not really. Go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Mayor. Go ahead, Mayor.
Well, just the last thing as I've been listening to this, I'm not real interested in just going crazy at marketing this. It's working pretty well right now, and it looks like we're being fair with people, and people are taking care of it. So on one of your questions about do we do any other marketing, I'm not real excited about putting this out on, and, you know, spending a lot more staff time on just to, you know, have people in this building. So that's my last comment for now.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, if you guys like the use that we're having for birthday parties and baby showers, we might put some sort of informational thing, yeah, an informational article in the newsletter, just kind of reminding people that it's here and that's kind of what the use is for. At the same time, I don't know that we're gonna get any more babies or birthdays than we already have in Wood Village, so.
I was just thinking like family reunions, like if we're gonna put it in our newsletter, maybe put it like, you know, that usually happens in the summer. So maybe like late spring,
We get a lot more family reunions and birthdays out in the park in the
Yeah.
summer.
Yeah.
You know, reservations of the
Oh,
gazebo,
I
the
guess that
picnic
makes sense,
shelter. Especially now with the barbecue pits and things. So that, I mean, it does work out really well. Because the space for a small child's birthday party that's relatively informal is expensive
Mhm.
versus you could hold it in a very nice one out in the park at no charge. So.
My only comments were, what's staff, like time and, you know, either preparing the space or afterwards, you know, and obviously, you know, we're not, again, we're not in the business of making money, but is it cost effective? Is it kind of make sense for their requests, or are we having to really redo the whole thing?
The biggest challenge in staff time is when we have to move the dais. It's a complex piece, and you know, while we try to design it in a very mobile way, it takes time. We're better at it. By we, I mean Caroline and other staff members they've got it down. I'm gonna say more often than not, and Caroline, you can hit me if I'm wrong.
Or just hit him?
You know, when we have to do different chair arrangements or different chair arrangements made, more often than not, the chairs are close to being put back. Once in a while, they aren't. You know, they're either left in stacks or otherwise elsewhere, and it takes, you know, a bit of time to put the chairs back in order. But generally, it goes relatively well with setup and or putting it back, whether we need to put it back in this configuration or a bit of chair cleanup or take out a garbage bag.
And a lot of our regular partners tend to help out. So
Especially the in gratis ones, they've been actually very, very good stewards of the space and being very cognizant of putting it back how it was, if not better than it was. So in that case, we haven't really had much to do in those, so.
And out of the ones that you said that are community members that have used the space, do you have any data of how many of those have rented the space 10 days prior to their event versus earlier? And I guess my only comment there is, if, you know, why wouldn't we want to encourage the earlier reservations than kind of waiting a little later? If there's, you know, more of that kind of going on.
we do have, I do believe we have that data. We have the data where when the event was held, obviously. And we usually have a date where it was signed off. That's not 100% of the time, especially early on. We weren't as good about making sure that sometimes we get a signature without a date, and we weren't stamping it at the time, so we don't not sure when it was submitted.
And we're also pretty good at, like, someone calls in or stops in, we'll like hold the date for a period of time while they work through the paperwork and things. So it doesn't always line up, but there's been a few that have done the less than 10 days, not many. And again, the rationale of a lesser price, you know, the shorter you get to a date is either something happened to their venue, there's an unplanned event. And so we're trying to help out with that. And again, that's just for community members. If you're outside, that doesn't matter. But likely if it's not read within 10 days of a date, it's not going to be anyway. So this is just some extra funding that we wouldn't have otherwise received.
I guess it was just a question if there was more people waiting, you know.
It doesn't feel like it. Most people that book it, they've got a date, they've got an event, and they want the space for that specific time.
Yeah, and I had one or two occasions where it was already booked. Like there hasn't been a lot of overlap or demand where somebody wanted it and it wasn't available, so.
Other questions, comments? All right. You will go to discussion of draft APP.
Back to the Greg Show. Maybe not. All right, our draft annual performance plan for the upcoming fiscal year 2024-25. So what we hope to do this evening is go over what we've prepared for the APP, and this is based off of our conversations at the council retreat last month. So we've taken what staff presented, our projects that are ongoing, need to roll over. We also made some sense of the big poster board and the different priorities, thoughts, and projects out of that. And so hopefully you saw that outlined in your staff report, as there's a pretty good narrative of what each project is. So, you know, the bullet point title may not fully encompass what our intent is, but I hope to walk through that tonight. So as I'm walking through each project, feel free to, you know, interrupt, ask questions. This will be time for questions at the end. So what we hope to do tonight is make sure, yes, these are the priorities, projects, and initiatives for the upcoming year. And then we'll formalize that in April with the formal adoption of the annual performance plan. So there there will be a little bit of tweaking. So at the very end, I have kind of a draft timeline in the actual APP format to show you. There'll be some movement with that. Another thing to point out is a number of these projects, initiatives, they could have fit under, in some cases, 4 different goals. So we did our best to kind of place them in what could be like the headliner goal or a big picture goal, knowing that, yeah, it would also touch, you know, this goal, that goal, the other. So again, this is put together for our kind of 10% of, I don't want to call it excess time, but time not dedicated to ongoing operations. And so this helps achieve those goals, which gets to our mission, vision, and otherwise our community outcomes. So for goal 1, what I did there, so these aren't necessarily in order of what you see in your staff report, because I put them in the order of the goals. So for the public health and safety training, the thought behind that was there was an interest in talking at the retreat about, you know, community CPR, you know, Narcan use, what does that look like? So what we thought we could do is work with some of our community partners, whether it's county health, sheriff's office, maybe even Gresham Fire, talk with them early about what kind of trainings do you do or could you do in a community setting, most, you know, likely here or maybe another kind of central location, and set that schedule up early and roll those out throughout the year. And again, some things like the CPR, first aid. And so that's how we hope to target those post-its that we saw on that board. The next one is community, what we titled Community Conversations. And again, that was taken from the spirit of, you know, understanding the cultures of our community, the different people in our community, the different, you know, concerns or needs in our community, and have it done in a very positive, facilitated conversation where we're actually just getting to know each other or our neighbors better or differently. And so again, we'd partner with a, you know, a different agency, most likely East County Resolutions. They are very good at actually holding these community conversations. They've done it in the past. And again, the targets would be, you know, different cultures of our community. Who are they? Could something be about homeless and kind of demystifying the stereotypes around those that are homeless, or substance abuse? We also know, you know, it's going to be a big election season coming up, and maybe there's concerns around what that means. So again, the idea would be work with, you know, a couple of different agencies, put together, hey, here's our intent, here's what we'd like to do, and what their schedule is and their expertise in holding these facilitated conversations. And then we help promote it, set up the space, etc. So for goal 2, community emergency management's resilience, that was getting at things around what do we do about generators in the case of power outage? What do we do about getting people, is that CERT training? That's the community emergency response team. So it's neighbors helping neighbors during emergencies or disasters. Maybe that's air conditioning units and helping, with a grant application and facilitating getting whether window units, portable units inside of homes in need. So again, we'd work with different partner agencies early on, see what's on their schedule, see what we could either piggyback on or partner with to roll some of these things out. So we didn't want to be too specific of, we're going to do CERT training in October. That may be what we do, but we don't know that. We also know the county health department's been really big lately on air conditioning units. If they're going to do another initiative for that, great. How can we help let our members in the community that could qualify know that they qualify and facilitate? Maybe we pick them up from, maybe it's a downtown location, we pick them up, they pick them up here, so it's easier to get them. So things like that is what we're trying to target with that emergency management resilience. And again, trying to make our community a little more resilient. We'll of course continue our every newsletter article about disaster preparedness, and again, really try to support when you think about a disaster. It could be, again, my pipes froze, I no longer have water. That's why you'll always have, several gallons of water available. And what can you do to help support even that? Regional fire service discussions, that could fall under several goals and will be certainly ongoing. I don't really need to talk more about this other than, it seems to be going really well. The other cities are walking this, with us. I'm actually presenting to the Fairview Council at their workshop in April to help get them up to speed since they've had some leadership changes. And so it's really been a multi-city collaborative effort. So it's going quite well. Goal 3. So we know we talked with you earlier on about different adjustments we can make to our utility rates and how we can restructure those fees, and communicating that out to our community members and having that input process. So we know that's going to extend past, this current year and into next. So we've kept that here. We have applied for and we'll know more, I think it's May time, for community development block grant money. While it is, our turn to apply for a project, it always is up to the CDBG board and then federal funding to come through to actually get the awards. But we did submit another park project, and it's what we discussed at the retreat, of adding picnicking capacity in this front grove, as well as enhancing the ADA access in that area since it is a lacking, as well as adding lighting to the front portion of the trail here in the multi-use field. So that is the grant application. I believe it's mid 70 some odd $1,000, and then we have some matching funds for, I think it was $125,000 or $135,000 total project. For the wetlands park, that's our property at Wood Village Boulevard and Arata. We have submitted, actually, I believe, 3 different grants to help facilitate that construction of it. I guess we submitted 2 grant proposals. We were invited to submit for the full grant on one of them. We're still waiting on the other. But basically, in grant funding, it's roughly $750,000 worth of grants we've asked for to help build out that park. So if we're awarded all or some, we want to move forward with the build out of that project and the community involvement with that project. So we'll see where that one takes us. And then main trunk line design and funding alternatives. So now through kind of August, September time, we'll be doing flow monitoring. Once that's completed and analyzed, we will be going in the design phase of what's needed to facilitate the next 50 years of our community. Hopefully that's done still the upcoming fiscal year, and we start actually working the financing package and, start bidding that out for construction. Nothing specific in goal 4, but as you can see, a number of them have already touched on. There are financial impacts to a number of these ones. So again, this is where there's overlap, but no necessarily specific ones under goal 4 this year. For goal 5, we have our compensation analysis for all of our team members. It's something we do every 3 years and as needed. This is year 3, so we'll be doing a full comp analysis for all our positions, which lends right into collective bargaining. So we do have union membership. It's our public works field operators. They are part of the union, and the contract ends June 30, 2025. So we'll be working to update the terms and all of that good stuff. Goal 6, we know we have several legislative priorities, a number of them, including EMS and what that looks like at a county level, and encouraging, again, just building off of our conversation from earlier this evening, encouraging our involvement and being able to play a role in that or have a bigger voice in that. We want support and funding for manufactured home co-ops, and that seems to be gaining steam and action at a legislative level. We know the short session just ended last week. Short sessions are hard. We're hoping to build a coalition now so that come next long session that has a lot of momentum. We know there's changed property ratio reform. You've been, updated on that. So it's been really great. There's actually a work group now involving some legislators and things. So basically it's work now through the next long term to see if we can't get some adjustment to the changed property ratio. And lastly, I'm really irritated at PGE and would like to see some either more transparency change or otherwise in their rate structures. And this stems from a few recent events. One, this January, call it a net 18% increase in PGE fees. We actually got some community members concerned about that, and they came to us, and what can be done about it. And we referred them to the PUC, the Public Utility Commission, which approves rate fees. PGE then just came out with a 7.5, 7.8% increase request. And buried deep in that is basically ongoing annual increases of that same magnitude that would require less kind of process. And finally, what was really the nail in the coffin that really irritated me this past summer. So we have our solar array on our building. It's relatively small, but summer months it does relatively well. We did not use any power. We generated more power than we used in August. And we had a $350 power bill because of the rate tiers and rate structures. And I don't like that. So especially being a public building, having to have alternative energy built into it, it seems almost like a double dip to me. So I don't know what can be done at a legislative level, but raising awareness. And when you look at PGE stock buybacks over the past couple of years at $30 million, how is that investing into their system? So yeah, I'm a little irritated. So if we can roll that in, that'd be a bonus. I'll get off my soapbox. Again, nothing directly in Goal 7, but certainly the wetlands project has a huge environmental positive impact in restoring that wetland and creating more education opportunities of the importance of wetlands. And then Goal 8, this is actually something we're building right now, but it's that kind of community civics courses or just education. And it's everything from what does the city do? And by city, I mean, in this case, Wood Village. What does Wood Village do? How do we operate? And bringing it at a very kind of base, easy to understand level, but then also adding in, great, this is what the city does. What does the county do? What do parts of the state do? And how do we interact and engage? So the optimal outcome is we put together a whole series of courses that whether you kind of take one or all, you can drop in at any given time, have a deeper understanding of kind of local government or government in general, and start building that sense of community and what we do and how they can also be involved in what we do, or even at the state and county level up to including like not just local elections, but county elections, state elections. So really excited about that potential project and effort. So at a very draft layout, this is how it could look. Again, I think we'll have a little bit of tweaking, but you'll see on a lot of them where we're going to ask community partners to kind of help us put together programs. You see it kind of stacked early and then dotted throughout mostly kind of the winter months. Historically, we've seen good participation kind of that fall before the holiday season and then kind of mid-January through about now, kind of the doldrums of winter, but not trying to include things during the holiday months. It's just really hard for both providers of a program as well as participants. So that's kind of how you see it laid out. We will fine tune this, certainly based on any comments and feedback, and then we'll bring it back in April. So what questions may I entertain?
Questions, comments? Mayor, Councilor Min.
Thank you.
No questions here. Thank you.
Just to compliment Greg on the first
Yeah.
one, dealing with the our fire study and his willingness to support Fairview and reaching out and helping that city also stay closely aligned with the three cities. So that's good work, Greg.
Well, thank you. And I'm glad I interpreted the post-it poster board
I know.
well enough.
I have a comment and I guess this is more personally, and I don't want to speak for anybody else on the council or anything like that. You know, I know this is supposed to be a work plan for staff with the additional 10%, but where can me or as council, where could we, you know, also provide some assistance or help? You know, when we talk about the co-op, I am after the meeting that Councilor Simpson came, he did connect me with their housing director of programs for Metro. And so I will be having a conversation with them later this month and sharing more about that co-op. So just looking at other opportunities, you know, where could council play a role in assisting? You know, I know Councilor Min had some deep conversations on some of these programs as well, and I don't want to speak for her, but you know, just, you know, where could we help?
Yeah, I mean, thank you for that. And I think, again, as we start rolling some of these out, either developing them or we've got some kind of plan in place, that's where then specific, like, again, community conversations. It's great to have council representation at, you know, those conversations. Same with the different trainings, if nothing else, to help get the word out. Again, we know you're going to be huge in the fire service conversations, utility rate conversations, and that's, you know, part of something as we structure these projects and programs. Where does your, you know, either help, participation, input, where does that come into play? And we'll get into that certainly as these projects mature and we get more information and move forward down the line. But there is a lot of opportunities for your involvement, and we'll keep you abreast of that, whether it's through, you know, updates here at a council meeting, you know, or my monthly report, through emails or just other events and opportunities. But yes, hopefully your active involvement is in many of these things, whether as your time allows or personal interests allow.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm looking at that fire conversation, so we can start, you know, having some connection on some other of these conversations. Those would lead directly into having that conversation.
And, you know, I mean, it's Wood Village has started very initial conversations with some PR, public relations experts and firms and trying to gather some initial talking points. Because as stated, there was an article in the Outlook. People, you know, are becoming aware of this, and it's great to have at least some initial talking points of why we are doing this. And so we're trying to put that package together now, which again, as maybe you talk to neighbors, friends, community members, you have at least, you know, half dozen talking points and they're all consistent as then we build this together of what it is we're going to evaluate.
There's always a place in the legislative work when the session's open for hearings and testifying at hearings and working with our representatives.
Yep, absolutely. Again, there'll be a lot of opportunities, and it'll be my job to keep you aware of those opportunities, not just the day before or a week before, but long in advance to give you lead time to plan schedules or opportunities. So if this fits the needs and discussions, we will again wrap it up, formalize it, and bring it back in April.
Great.
Great. Just quick thing, we missed it earlier, but there was the Ivory Cleanup Day last Saturday.
Yes, Ivy
did that
Cleanup
go?
Day. Thanks to Caroline for helping to coordinate and organize it. That was in partnership with Solve. Our recent Parks Committee member, it was Christine. She's huge into Solve and huge into removing invasive ivy. And so she's going to lead the next one in April for an Earth Day Solve event here at the park. So this was kind of a test run that Solve wanted to do to help coach her and lead her. And so Caroline did a great job helping promote that, coordinate that. And I mean, for 2 hours, 25 volunteers removed a lot of ivy. And so there'll be some photos in this coming week's weekly of that great work.
He's one of our new parks commissioners, right?
Yes.
Oh,
And
25
what was,
volunteers. That's really
I'll
good.
call it sad but good. Some feedback that we got was we provided lunch as part of this, and they were all shocked and surprised that we would provide, you know, snacks and lunch because there's a lot of long-term Solve people or regular Solve people, they never had that. And I'm like, we're getting, you know, 50 hours of work here. The least we can do is feed you. So,
Yeah.
but Solve was great. They brought the, you know, gloves, supplies. You know, Caroline was great. You know, we kind of moved the debris piles to a central location. The crew then picked it up on Monday, and we'll just continue on in April.
Great.
Replant it where? Didn't replant it?
I think it got replanted at Allwood.
Oh, did you? Okay. Easy.
It'll turn into mulch.
Mhm.
Awesome. Just quick reminder, we'll hear about it by the next meeting, but the Easter egg event, Saturday, March 30th is the next event coming up.
It's going to be excellent.
Excellent. Oh, we finally heard.
Yeah, again, Carolina's done a wonderful job getting different, volunteer organizations and groups together, layouts, the plan for it. I actually played with some of the desk toys that she has arranged for the Sensory Quiet Room. So I mean, again, just the thoughtfulness of it all has been really
Yeah.
great.
That's
So
Super.
we've ordered good weather. We'll see if it comes in on time.
Okay,
Okay,
that's a good thing.
who do we hold accountable?
So
Me.
Mayor, you have a good weather where you're at?
Rose.
Did for you. Oh,
Oh,
there he
there you
is.
You're
Can't hear you.
mute.
Your lips are moving.
You need to unmute, Mayor.
Try
It's
again.
okay.
Okay.
Okay, with no further discussion, we are adjourned.